What's up, you guys? In today's episode, I'm going to talk about something that's been bothering me for a while, which is why are some 50-watt heads a lot smaller than their 100-watt counterparts? Stay tuned. What is up, my family? If you're still here, just know that I took my sleeveless shirt and I framed it in a glass enclosure and hung it up on my wall so that way it's a memory of what once was. All right, guys. Hey, listen. So one thing that's kind of been bothering me since I started playing guitar again in 2016 is, you know, after a 20-year break from 1996 to 2016, things kind of changed. Like, all of a sudden, I found that some amplifiers, just because they're 50 watts, they're now smaller than their 100-watt, you know, twin older brothers, if you will. So it kind of started, I started playing again, and one of the first amps was the EVH. If I remember, it was the white EVH 6L6, which was the first series that they came out with as a 50 watt. And I was just like, why is that thing so small for a 50 watt? Like, if you guys, you know, do enough research, and if you're old as fuck, then you probably already know that the difference in decibel between the 50 watt of any amp and the 100 watt is negligible. It's, you know, 7 dBs. I mean, it's a lot when you're considering the fact that 7 dBs, once you're, you know, you're cranked at 100 or cranked to 10 on a 50 watt and cranked to 10 at a 100 watt, you know, it makes a big enough difference. So, you know, just to give you an idea, my Laboga Mr. Hector is a multi-watt 50 100 watt. So I can set the Laboga to, let's call it 6 on the 50 watt setting, and when I turn the toggle to 100 watts, it's not that, I mean, you can hear that there's a difference, but I love the fact that it's a normal size head. You know, it's the same size as my PV that's sitting on top of it. But then you have the armored Decibel, which is 50 watts, and that's just a little bit smaller than the PV. So for me, that's kind of fine, right? But then you have the EVHs on top of it, and those are, again, 50 watt amplifiers. But when you're comparing it to the 100 watt version, it's, you know, I can't say that it's half the size, but, you know, these things are 2/3 of the size of a 100 watt version. So aside from the fact that these have 3 channels, you know, the one thing that I can tell as far as the difference goes with the larger 100 watt version is, instead of having channels that are being shared, you literally have the breakdown of each channel, and, you know, because now you have more real estate. But again, like, I just don't understand. And all right, and just to give you an idea, like, those are my Jet Cities. That one says Soldano, but I just threw the badge on there. But that is a Jet City 20, which is designed by Mike Soldano. But that one actually has the Soldano mod in there also. That one doesn't. That one I got from my buddy Chad out in Michigan. But those are 20 watts. You know, it makes sense when they're 20 watts and they're in a smaller enclosure. But a 50 watt, like, yo, just to give you an idea. So the Burberry JCM 2000 TSL 100 is the same size as my 1986 Marshall JCM 800 2204, which is a 50 watt. Sitting on top of that is my Cherryatone Yeti 50 watt. Sitting on top of that is my white Fortin Cali 50 watt. But I feel like, you know, they didn't make these mini amps. And then, of course, you know, when I'm making the comparison, and I'll just turn it slightly so you can see it, but here is my Fortin sigil right there. And that is, you know, that makes sense for it being this little tiny thing because it's a small little wattage of an amp. But overall, like, yo, I was totally disappointed. I'm like, why is it that this EVH 50 watt is a tiny little itty bitty thing when I'm used to, and of course I grew up, you know, in the 80s. So for me, every head was the same size, you know, unless, you know, later in the 80s when Fender came out with the M80 series, they had a full size head, but they also had a smaller version of the M80. And, you know, it was just such a disappointment. So guys, again, I had this 20-year stint where I had a guitar. In fact, I actually had a half stack, and then later a full stack, but just never really played that much. So I never, you know, I never understood why or at what point did companies decide, you know what's up, son? Yo, you know how we're gonna save money? We're gonna go ahead and the 50 watt, we're gonna shrink that mother and just make it a little smaller. I don't know why. Again, I love the fact that, you know, even my, let's see if you can see it. All right, you can see it right here. So this is my Marshall JCM 2000 DSL. So it's the dual super lead as opposed to the twin super lead, which is 100 watts. But yo, that DSL is the same size as the 100 watt, which is the same size as the same head that Marshall made for years, the JCM 800 back, you know, going on 40 years now. So yeah, it was just real interesting. It was just really weird to see everything kind of get compressed. Even Mesa, like, you know, if there's no difference between the Mesa triple rectifier and the dual rectifier and the single rectifier, which is 50 watts, like, why is it that all of a sudden the Badlander to me is just a tiny little thing? And I'm like, that's weird because, okay, I get that it's 50 watts, but it's almost the size of my Fortin sigil, which is a little, again, just almost no volume wattage. I mean, it's loud as fuck, but yeah, but you know, it was just really weird. So guys, earlier today, and I'll have this video up probably next week whenever it arrives, but I ended up finding, thanks to Chris Reardon in Massachusetts, who, if you're friends with him, you are going to be driven to the poorhouse because he's the reason why I have my Fortin Cali. He's like, bro, look what just came up for sale. You need to get this right now. So of course I get another message like that earlier, and he's like, here's what just came up. You have got to buy this right now. So I ended up just getting a PV 6534 Plus. And then I posted a photo, and I was shocked that a lot of guys didn't know that PV had their 6505 Plus and then decided to create an EL34 version and just called it the 6534 Plus. So I'm super psyched about that. That's going to be incredible. It's the unicorn. It's one of my unicorns. It's definitely one of those amps that's hard to find when they are available. They are out the door. Finding them at a great price is almost non-existent. And I did get it at a great price. Again, thank you to Chris Reardon, and huge shout out to Dan Gates. I'll put a link below to his YouTube channel. Absolutely incredible guitarist. Dude, not only does he have one unicorn, he has two. So, of course, I follow him, and I'm just like, how does this guy have two of those? I've never even seen one in the wild, let alone someone having two, and he loves them. So, of course, I'm just like, dude, if I ever get the chance to grab a 6534 Plus, I would have to grab one, and at whatever the cost is. But again, huge shout out to Chris, who is also the owner of Amp Guru, who makes these absolutely amazing Kemper profiles and quad cortex profiles. So I'll put a link below to his channel also. That way you guys can check that out. But guys, again, let me know, like, at what point was there ever a time where suddenly these amps, you know, because the wattage was cut in half, all of a sudden became 2/3 the size of their larger brothers? So guys, leave those comments below. Thank you so much for watching. If you are new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. And as usual, this sexy guy will talk to you soon. And yes, that's a big rifle back there. Yes. Yes, that's a big rifle.